We really, really appreciate you taking the time. We're delighted to have so many new faces with us this evening, as well as those who've been with us in the community for some period of time. So welcome, everybody. For those of you who I haven't met before, my name is Denise McQuaid, and I will be joined by Mary McKenna this evening to run through how to catch an angel. The headline numbers around fundraising for female founders are startling, and only 2% of all venture funding goes to female founders, despite us owning 38% of the businesses globally. And only 8% of venture capitalists are female globally, and only 7% of venture capital firms have a woman on the board. So it's an incredibly disjointed and has a incredibly disjointed diversity rate from a fundraising and investment ecosystem. Research has been undertaken over many years around the startups and those that have been fundraising, both men and women, and looking at them from a comparable point of view, both from their quality of the business and their capital needs. And yet male founding startups raise 5 times more investment than our female counterparts, which is another frightening and scary statistic. And we all know that female founders, in the research that has been undertaken, get asked very strong preventative questions when going on their fundraising journey, very much around the safety and their responsibilities, where our male counterparts get asked promotion-based questions around where are their achievements going to lead, and how much ideals can they deliver against their business. So there is disparity. And as many of you know, through the last 12 months, we have been building AwakenAngels, which is the first and only Island of Ireland female angel syndicate. And while we are not here to promote it tonight, it would be remiss of us not to explain where we are on the journey at this point. So we are nearly at the point of fully onboarding 75 new angels into the community, and it's growing daily. So we are delighted with the progress to date, and many of you as founders are also coming on the investment journey. I see many of you here with us tonight. So we are thanking you for being a founder and changing the landscape from an Irish perspective, but also joining us to change the investment ecosystem on the island of Ireland. So if you are interested in joining us as an Awaken Angel, even though you're on your founding journey, please do register and come on board with us. But as I say, we're not here to promote it from an investment perspective tonight, but we are here to share some of mine and Mary's insights with you before you start to embark on your fundraising journey, and to give you our perspective in some of the challenges and opportunities and things that you can do to smooth the process before you come to Awaken Angels, or before you come to another angel investment syndicate, or to start raising from a venture perspective. So we normally invite people to give this advice and share their knowledge, but tonight we thought we would do it ourselves, and for Mary and I to be at your disposal tonight to be able to answer any questions that you may have. So delighted again to have so many of you joining us. If you quick show of hands, just how many of you are fundraising currently or about to start to look at the fundraising journey? Okay, so quite a few. Okay, great. Well, hopefully this session will give you some support and insight as you start that journey or continue on that journey. So I'm going to kick off with some questions for Mary. And talk to her about her fundraising journey and her journey as an angel investor. Then we'll go into a breakout room, and then Mary's going to flip on me and ask me some questions, because I have possibly at this point reviewed close to 1,000 investor decks and have some thoughts and things to share with you at this point. So any questions that you may have as we run through, we will come back after the second breakout question for a Q&A. So please keep the questions flowing, and anything that will obviously, you can come off mic and raise your hand or put them in the chat. But we will have 15 minutes towards the end for you to be able to ask us any questions that you may have. So dialing in from a much warmer climate than it is here with me this evening is Mary, who is in the west coast of the US at the moment. So thank you for joining us, Mary. I know you've nearly half your working day done, and it's probably not even midday yet. So thank you for being with us from sunnier climates.
9 o'clock in the morning, Denise. 4 hours
9 o'clock
done.
in the morning, nearly half a day done. So just Mary, before we get into your angel investment journey, I just want to chat a little bit about your founding journey and just to the point of what motivated you to start your own business and how did you identify the right opportunity that was going to take you to all the way through to exit?
Okay, thanks, Denise, and welcome everybody. Welcome to a few people that we've seen on the She Generate interview sessions this week too. Great to see you joining us, and you're all very welcome. And if you're fundraising in Ireland, you're absolutely in the right place when you're here with us. So I'm going to just keep this short, Denise, because it's a long story and it's a well-documented one. It's written up on my LinkedIn blogs and things like this about my own founder journey, and on my own blog as well, kickingassets.co.uk. But I suppose I promise I'm only going to curse once on this call this evening, but I'm probably going to do it now. So if you can cover your ears if you're a sensitive soul. I worked for a lot of men in my career, and honestly, a lot of them were assholes. They really were. And I reached a point in my 40s where I thought to myself, you know what? Actually, a lot of the people that I see running companies are pretty mediocre. I'm going to have a go at this myself. And so I started my own business for the first time when I was 43 years old. And I tell people that story in case there are people sitting out there that think that they're too old to give it a go, that they're too old to start something. You are actually never too old, and you can always, and in fact, it's of great benefit to you if you have got a lot of years of experience in the corporate world behind you, and then you decide to start a company. And then in terms of my identifying a business opportunity, and again, this is a story that's well documented. It's on podcasts and it's written up in various places. The business that I actually went on to really scale was Learning Pool, where I was co-founder, and I found that opportunity in a bin in a co-working space in Borough Market. That's the truth. I overheard a conversation that two people were having at a desk next to me, where they read an information memorandum and they threw it into a bin that was sitting between their desk and mine. I took the piece of paper out of the bin, I straightened it out. I asked them if they were sure that they weren't interested in the opportunity, and they said that they weren't. And 30 minutes later, I was sitting in a coffee bar in Farringdon discussing the opportunity with the person that was actually selling it off from a government agency. So, there's a couple of lessons in there. It isn't always about an idea. It isn't always about doing something that is unique, that you've had to come up with the idea of yourself. And I suppose the last piece of the lesson is that opportunity is everywhere. You just need to be looking out for it sometimes.
Love the fact that you found it in a bin, Mary, and went on the journey, obviously, to scale that business right the way through to its exit. But it wasn't all smooth sailing along the way. Obviously, your no founder journey to get to the point of the capacity that you did at Learning Pool and the growth that you did at Learning Pool. What were some of the challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome them?
So I suppose if you ask the question to any founder on this call, they would tell you that there are two main challenges in a startup business. The first one, which is one that we're going to cover off tonight, is access to finance. How do you actually find the money that you need to give you the operating finance that you need to get your idea up and running and to employ people and get it to a point where it starts to take on a bit of a life of its own and generate revenue? That really early stage where you're trying to fund things out of your own bank account and your credit card, that sort of stuff. I mean, that is really tough. And the second part, as a startup, often nobody knows you, or if they do know you, people aren't really willing to take a flyer on leaving a stable job and joining a startup. So the other part of the challenge is access to talent. I would see finding talent as probably the key role of a startup CEO. It is your primary role. You should be. So the way to overcome that for me was to just be at every single networking event that happened, talking about the company, talking about our plans, talking about how we were going to be the next biggest e-learning company in the world, blah, 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 and really getting people excited about joining the team. The access to finance wasn't so successful. You know, I'm talking about 15 years ago, when things were a lot less transparent, I think is probably the word, than it is now in terms of how you go about raising finance, and there was a lot less focus upon it. But we didn't have any success whatsoever in raising investment for our business. So that was a mission to nothing, I'm afraid.
Mary, there is a story where you turned down an investment.
Yeah, I turned down a VC. It's one of the Belfast VCs. I turned them down not once, but twice. I didn't like the terms, to be really, really frank with you all. I mean, that when you get that term sheet, that's that's a really important document that you should read, and you should scrutinize in great detail, and you should get legal assistance in doing that if you need that support, because I didn't like the valuation that was offered. I didn't like what the investors were bringing to the table. I didn't like their terms, and so it was a quick decision, really, not to take it. VC investment isn't for everyone. It's a big decision. You're parting with part of your equity. You're bringing in a whole different level of scrutiny into your business and accountability, and you're introducing a whole new group of people that you don't currently work with, that you have to get used to working with and getting into the routines and fitting into their schedule rather than them fitting into yours. And it's a big decision. And I decided it just wasn't for me. I'd previously worked in a VC-funded startup as a finance director. And so I kind of was aware of some of the behaviors that some VCs can exhibit, and I didn't really want to put myself through that again. The kind of the midnight phone calls and all that sort of stuff when they need information the next day, and just the general way that certainly the VCs that we had in my previous startup, they tended to ride a bit roughshod over the founders, and I just didn't really want to do that again. So yeah, turned down the term sheets. Some things are more valuable than money.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really important, narrative that we would be instilling in all of our founders from an AwakenHub perspective, is make sure that when you're taking investment, that it is from the right people on the right terms, and that you don't do more damage to your business than to yourself in taking the capital from the wrong place. But Mary, an exited founder, you got to the very end of that journey, and then you embarked on a brand new journey as an angel investor. So can you explain what your motivations and drivers were to flip over to the other side?
Just before I do that, Denise, I will say that, all of you that are starting out, some people do make it to the end, and the prize is worth it. It really is. So, don't waver on that journey. The prize is worth it. The various prizes are worth it. And some people do manage to get to the end. So on the days when you're feeling a bit down, just keep that in mind, that, the prize is worth it. So yeah, I had a sort of an experiment actually when I exited from Learning Pool. And again, this is written up on my blog, but I spent 2 years saying yes to most of the things that came into my inbox, whereas the previous 8 years, I basically said no to everything, because anybody who's a startup founder on this call will know that there are days when you seriously do consider whether or not you can get away with an hour or two less sleep a night, because there's so many things. So you don't go to events, you don't speak at conferences, you turn down anything that you can that involves a night away from home. You say no is your default position. So I had a period of time where I allowed myself to say yes to perhaps 70% of the crazy things that landed in my inbox. But I also decided that having experienced the world as a female tech founder, I knew in my heart that things were a lot more difficult for women, particularly in that early time when they're starting a new business and they're in a pre-revenue stage. They've got a great idea, but nobody will believe in them and nobody will fund them. So I decided that I would start to do a bit of angel investment on a small scale. And over the last 8 years or so, I have now invested in 25 early stage companies. They're not all tech businesses, but most of them are. They're not all women, but most of them are. And it's going pretty well. I mean, angel investment, as all of you will know, is a pretty risky pastime. But it's also a team sport, and it's great fun. It's something that you can do with your friends, and you can get involved in a company, and you know, it's a very worthwhile thing to do. And any newbies out there, I am going to give a little bit of promotion for our Angel Syndicate. If you're thinking about angel investment, it's probably a good idea to do it as part of a syndicate. I didn't follow my own advice, and I did my first 3 investments by myself, and those 3 companies have all disappeared. So there's the lesson, the proof of the pudding. So being in a syndicate reduces the risk. Going out on your own is even more risky than just generally investing in startups.
And Mary, you've co-invested in syndicates. You've done it on your own. You've co-invested with a small number of people, and obviously, having got to know a huge ecosystem globally of angel investors now in the portfolio that you've built, and obviously in the work that we've been doing to build AwakenAngels, what would you consider the key good characteristics of a good angel? Obviously, we talk about, you know, the some of the bad term sheets, but if our founders tonight are speaking to angels, what would you say they should be looking for from a characteristic point of view?
Okay, so if you're bringing on angels, particularly that very, very first few angels into your business, you really, really need to be looking for smart money, not dumb money. And what I mean by this is you need to be looking for people that are going to bring you something a lot more than money. You need them to be, you know, and they could bring you all sorts of things. You're probably also looking for people who are able to fill in some of the gaps in your team on a temporary basis until you've got the resources to be able to employ those skills yourself. So it could be that you're looking for somebody who's got a huge network, who can augment your own business development activities by opening a lot of doors for you, or by generally even going to sales meetings with you and helping you with your sales. You're probably looking for somebody who's well connected and is going to be able to help you get a much bigger check further down the line, in that they have investor networks that are deeper and wider than yours. You might need somebody who's got deep domain expertise, and I would particularly recommend this for any of you that are part of the UK's tax system, or that are accessing the UK's SEIS and EIS. Those tax incentives give you an opportunity to perhaps identify somebody in your network who's got deep domain expertise and can really help you, but they're not an angel investor and they've never invested. You can go to that person and explain to them that if they invest in your startup, they're going to get 50% of that money straight back against their tax account this year. And that's maybe an underutilized something that's really not used very often, but I would recommend it for startups that are working in particular niches, where there's somebody that you've identified that you really want to bring on board. The worst types of angel investors are the people that send you 30 questions every night, and that they're going to do that between now and the end of time. So it's really up to you to try to identify those people before you take any money off them, because I promise you that they are out there and they do exist. So the worst angels, I think, are the ones that cross the line from the non-exec into the exec space and start to try to micromanage the founding team. They are a nightmare, and they're the people that you need to really watch out for. Stay well away.
And Mary, obviously, you get approached a lot for from founders globally, looking for you to invest in their business or have a call with them. But the volume, as I know, you receive is extensive. But what is the
And as you
biggest
received, Denise,
irritation?
you're in the
Yeah,
same place. Yeah.
yeah. But in terms of the irritations, the things that you wish founders didn't do in that approach, or the things that they should do in that approach, what would be the things that please stop doing if you could scream it now, for those founders on their fundraising journey?
The worst thing that people do and is pitch you at events where you're there as a citizen. You're just there in the audience, and somebody realizes that you're an angel investor, and they stop pestering you when you're actually hanging out with your friends and you're there to enjoy the event or to see what's going on. Worst example I have of this is being at an event in Huckletree in Dublin, and actually just went to the bathroom, and when I came out there was 3 founders waiting to pitch to me in the corridor outside the toilets. That's the depths of behaviors that I've seen. But like you, Denise, every day a lot of cold pictures come through. People will send cold pictures in a Twitter DM, like someone that you've never ever met in your life. Loads and loads of cold pictures come in through LinkedIn. Sometimes I write back to the person to say, whoever's told you that this is a good idea, it isn't, and you should stop doing it. Sometimes they get really angry and write quite angry replies. Some people do accept cold approaches. I'm not one of them. I like approaches to come through a warm introduction. If you're not able to find warm introductions to investors, your network isn't big enough and you need to do a lot more work on building out your network. So yeah, I think I'm a fan of the warm introduction, a bit of background, and then a call with the founder to hear a bit about their idea. And I probably will extend that courtesy to people that have come through a warm intro, even if I'm not that interested in what they appear to be doing, to be honest, Denise, because that's all part of nurturing your own network. And the person that's made the introduction, you wouldn't want to cause them any offense. So I usually would take a call with somebody from a warm intro. So that's probably the holy grail.
Okay, folks, shout that from the rooftops. Warm intros, and we'll get into how you find them and how you nurture them when we come back from our breakout. But before, I have 2 more quick questions, Mary, before we go into our breakout room. When you are looking at a business and you've done that call with the founder and you've received the deck, and whether you're in a syndicate or with a group of other angels and you've gone through the due diligence, what's the thing or the trait that you look for in a founder that will tip it over the edge and give that yes? What's the thing that you look for in that founder?
So if I'm at that stage and looking at an investment, I've already decided that I like the product, there's a big enough market, all of those hygiene factors are all in order. And at that point, if I'm still interested, it is all about the founder or the founding team. It is all about the founder and the founding team. Nothing else matters, because I fully understand that what they're doing right now is quite likely to pivot into something else. So I spend a bit of time getting to know them, and I like to be able to watch how they behave when certain things happen. So how they react if a bit of competition comes out of the woodwork. I like founders that are self-confident and able to front the business well, but not arrogant or egotistical, or ones that behave like a brat all the time. Really sort of, it's all about the founders' personality and how they lead and how they conduct themselves in a way that persuades me that they're the right person to take the business through the next stage of its growth. They might not be the person that's going to be leading when it's a 50 million turnover business, but that they're going to be the right person that's going to take it to that, and that I have the belief that they can do this. Also, it has to be somebody that I'm not going to mind hanging out with for the next 4 or 5 or 6 years, because that's probably how long it's going to take before I get my investment back out. So approaching it from a perspective of, you know, I only really work with people that I like these days. So, you know, it is a little bit of a sell, I suppose, to the investor. And it's not just your product or service that you're selling, it's yourself too.
Yeah, super. And finally, Mary, before we go into the breakout rooms, obviously you've won European Angel Investor of the Year and UK British Angel Investor of the Year. So what did winning those awards mean to you?
Everyone says this, it's a little bit like Oscar speech, isn't it? It isn't ever about me personally, and I wouldn't have dreamt of going for those things if we weren't launching an angel syndicate. But boy, is the timing good in terms of winning two pretty large, prestigious awards at the same time that we're launching an angel syndicate. And what it's done, I suppose, for us, it's opened up a lot of opportunities for us to collaborate with other angel syndicates out there, both in the UK and in other parts of Europe, which is very appropriate for our target audience here in Ireland in terms of founders and investors. And as you know, so we've been to Germany a couple of times, we've been to Paris, we've been to New York 3 times this year. It's opened a lot of doors for us. It's put us on the map, and it's allowed us to position ourselves for taking over the world. Thank you, Denise.
So